Grandmaster Flash, Africa Bambaataa, Kool Herc started throwing parties, and they start mixing records like "To Be Real." With he could, but and as kids, so I was too young to go. So my big brother, he was actually a crate boy for Grandmaster Flash. So this is how much Fat Joe is in woven within the culture of hip hop is my big brother used to carry the crates. They used to play vinyl. So my big brother had the privilege of carrying Flash's crates, but he would come back with these cassettes. And we would listen to the cassette and they'd be like, back up off the ropes, back up off the ropes, get behind the ropes. And they'd be like, Mary, Mary, where are you going to? On. That funk is on. Yo! They had a record that I don't know if anybody in this room heard, but they had this, I don't know if you've been told that Santa Claus is a black man, a black man, a black man. And I be in the house like, yo, this is crazy right here. And so to answer your question is, so growing up in the Bronx, I grew up in a project building. So our projects have 14 buildings. Our one project building had 144 families. And we had a lot of people in every apartment, right? And so the first time I heard a record go viral was The Message by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious. And what I mean by that is when I came down the building, every floor I went to, every single apartment was
Don't push me.
What?
Cause I'm
To the edge,
I'm trying.
not to. All right, I'll give it over to Dougie.
That's your 5-time Grammy nominee, Fat Joe. All right, Dougie, when you were growing up and you were in Harlem, and part of what made rap was the beat and the beatbox, and this is the human beatbox, the first person to say, well, it doesn't have to be a machine, it could be a person, and it could be part of it could be part of the human created music experience. Where'd that idea come from? How did you even think of that?
Well, continuing on the story of hip hop, I grew up in Harlem, and there's certain people that played a specific role. There's a guy named DJ Hollywood. He is the first guy that I ever heard and to date rap. And my sister came in the house one day and she said, there's this guy named Hollywood everybody's talking about. I said, what he does? She said, he rap. I said, what tell me what he say. He said, ring-a-ding-a-ding, da-dong, da-dong-dong, da-dang, da-dang, dang, da-ding, da-dong-dong, to the hip, hop. I said, say that again. And I never forgot it. But he was the guy who inspired me as well as the people that Joe are talking about. So I was able to learn directly from Hollywood. And I am of the first generation. I'm kind of like the first child of the first generation of hip-hop. So it's very interesting. So to answer your question, because Joe, I knew Joe before he was rapping. He was strapping. Maybe capping. No, but a different type when it wasn't that. But continuing on with the story. So, yeah. Just a little, keep y'all engaged here. So real short.
I don't think you're having an issue there.
Yeah. We're in Davos, So what happened in growing up in Harlem, you're around the dope fiends, the drug dealers, pimps, prostitutes. I mean, it's unbelievable what we grew up in. For us to be here now is a blessing from God, because we grew up in an environment that most people don't get out of. And we have a lot of friends that did not make it out. So we represent hip hop to the fullest, and we represent those that didn't make it out. Because one of the things that we have in common is that we don't leave no man behind. You see what I'm saying? That's something culturally that we just don't do. So in hip hop, there's 5 elements. You have the DJ, and the DJs were Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Well, Grandmaster Flash. Grand was a Theodore. These were the top guys that you knew. In Harlem, it was Master Don. DJ Hollywood, he was a DJ, but we knew him more for MCing. Number 2 is the MC. MC is the master of ceremony, which is different than the rapper. Number 3 is the graffiti artist. Some of y'all seen graffiti, you be upset, but some of y'all don't understand the creativity of the person that's doing it. Number 4 is the break dancer, electric boogie. Some of y'all probably in here used to break dance, but if you try that now, you're gonna break. Right? And number 5 is the beatbox, and I created the 5th element. So in creating the 5th element, I appreciate that. Summarizing it up, I created the 5th element because in school, I used to play in junior high. I was learning how to play the trumpet. And my music teacher, well, I came to the school to learn how to play the drums and the percussions. The music teacher told me, no, you gotta play the trumpet first. He said, and then I'll let you play the drums and the percussions. I said, okay, no problem. I wasn't happy about it, but I was doing it. So you take this trumpet home every day. And I used to practice this all the time. One day I came back to the school, and the music program was cut. As in most of our schools, when it was programs that was really engaging, they would cut them. So I gave him back the trumpet, but I used to remember the exercises. And in the way we grew up, there'd be speakers, mom and pop record shops walking up the block. So I would hear all of the different songs. So walking home, I would kind of like say, oh, let me do the bass line. Okay, let me do the drum. So if it's a bass line, remember the song Super Rapping?
God damn.
Right. So that's the bass line. So now I'm walking and I'm doing the bass line. Then I'll say, let me throw something else in there. Then I would say, I'm going to throw something else in there. And I just keep adding and adding to like. And now I'm doing all of these things. So I started just doing it more and more to the point that I started to go over one of my guys' house to practice because we would practice with the DJ. So while he was taking the records off, I started doing the same thing. And then he said, yo, that was crazy. And his mother came in and said, I like that beat. That was a nice record. You should play it. He said, that wasn't a beat, Ma. That was him. And she said that, and she said, well, he said, well, I don't know what that means, but okay. And then he told me to do it outside at something we would call a jam. It's a block party, a big block party, but it's illegal. We would plug the system into the light pole. Nobody was an electrician either. I don't know why.
The only way I could explain this is, I'm sorry, Doug.
Go.
Like when you see the movies of Easter and Jesus Christ is walking and you see like an Exodus. So you would be playing softball, basketball, whatever you doing. The minute you heard that speaker going boom, 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 you would just drop your baseball bat, your glove, and everybody would be walking towards the music, and that's where the break dancing and everything would go for. I'm sorry.
No, and that's
this
good.
is called a commentator.
That's
routine.
right. No, that's what we throwing. This is how we doing it. See, so what happened is that then I did it outside. This was never done. This is something nobody ever heard of. So when I did it, everybody was going crazy, like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. So that was the birth of the beatbox, which became the 5th element. Now the question is this: would I have created it if the music program wasn't cut? You see? So sometimes this is why I describe hip hop as this. I always say, we the willing, led by the unknowing, are doing the impossible for the ungrateful. We have done so much,
We the willing,
for so long with so little that we are now qualified to do anything with nothing. And that is hip hop.
So first of all, 2-point order. I have the easiest job in the history of moderation. And the second is, you all are at the best panel in the whole week of Davos already. So. And we got another hour of good stuff and 2 more panels to come, but we'll keep going. By the way, guys, stay a while. Why don't we make some room and pull up? There's a lot of space over on that side. So if you can, take out that bottleneck.
All I heard when I was coming, they say Davos is like, the home of the billionaires. Yeah. And I actually thought of putting my wire information behind this panel while we were talking.
I see some money out there. I will tell you that.
Some people do Cash App. I do wire.
But let's talk about money. Doug, you talked about the fact that you didn't, your music program got cut and you had to do it. I will say, Forbes is in more rap songs than almost any other brand. We're in 75 different rap songs. And people ask me, why is that? Why is that? And I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I think I have the reason, which is because Forbes is a brand about entrepreneurship and doing it yourself. And when you say, hey, I'm on the cover of Forbes, I'm in Forbes, it means no one is giving anything to you. You had to take it. And people intuitively get that and say, well, that's a brand that celebrates people who take it for themselves versus wait to be promoted by their big corporation, which, you guys have had, decades and decades waiting for that and not getting it and now having to take it. So with that in mind, how do we go from the beats to the bucks? How did, you guys have had financial lows and you've had financial highs, and now you're both riding on highs here. How have you seen hip-hop evolve over these 50 years as a creator's business?
Well, Dougie's from the golden age. I like to think that's the greatest era of hip-hop. Me personally, the LL Cool J's, the Fat Boys, the Salt and Peppers, the MC Lights, Queen Latifahs, the Slick Ricks, the Dougies, that time, right? Big Daddy Kane's, the Biz Markie, rest in peace. But when we came, which is the Jay-Z's, the Nas, the Fat Joes, the Diddy's, not to say the music industry isn't still exploiting the artists and the talent, but we came with a sense of ownership and equity. And so we started our own subsidiaries and our own brands, and we started our own clothing lines and our own liquor brands and our own, and so so we came in with a sense of, all right, we ain't gonna work for nobody, we gonna work for ourselves. And we've been doing it ever since, right? And like me, I'm independent. Everything I own everything. Right? Anything I do, I own it. If you see Fat Joe doing this, he's a part of it somewhere. Whether it's 1% or 100%, he owns it, right? And so that's what I think my era came from, with ownership. And now we're thinking about the tech space, the AI space. We're thinking about the cannabis space. New York City is finally legalizing cannabis. So you better believe Fat Joe's gonna have a warehouse of cannabis. And I don't even smoke, but I'm an entrepreneur, Mr. Forbes.
And let me jump on that too. I come from what he's talking about, LL and a lot of these guys, that's actually the second wave of hip hop. And let me tell you why, because the first one.
I said the golden age.
Yeah, the golden age.
You guys.
Right. No, that's well, the golden. But when I'm saying the first, I'm talking about the guys that never got their just due, which is the Cold Crush Brothers. I don't feel Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five got what they deserve. I don't feel that, the Fantastic Five, DJ Hollywood, a lot of the guys got what they deserve. Right, and we can go on and on. So one of the things that I'm looking to see is something set up where the people that help build this are able to be taken care of. It's like your mother or your father. They help you get an education, they help you grow, they put you through things. And when you see that you have made yourself successful, you want to give back to your mother, your father, your grandmother. So part of my journey of being here is to get people to have a better understanding and appreciation of hip-hop so that we can do something and set something up so that a lot of the great artists that have established this can be taken care of, not in a way like you're just giving them something, but they gave you something. They gave the world hip-hop. This thing called hip hop has transformed the world. It's colorless. Everybody's hip hop. Everybody's engaging. I mean, one day
let me say one thing,
Yeah.
right? 9/11, right, was a day where music stopped. Right? I was in New York City when it happened, and music stopped. I mean, stopped. Planes were moving. Music. It was just eerie, right? Not only because of what happened on 9/11, but with the music stopping, it let me know that if this world didn't have music, this would be a horrible place. And so music is the universal
generations
language.
together.
You know, we go perform in Japan. Some of these people don't even speak English. They know every word of a hip hop song. You know, we seen some army guys. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No,
I seen
keep
some
on.
army guys in Ukraine going to war, and they were playing lean back. They didn't even know English, and they was saying, and they were saying this motherfucker saying some shit on here. We need to pump this.
I don't even know what he's saying, but I
Yeah,
know
yeah.
it's
Oh, I know he's saying something. Right? And so music is one of the biggest gifts God ever gave earth, and hip-hop music. If you ever want to know what's going on in the world, you'll learn it through hip-hop. If you want to know what's going on in Ukraine, find the Ukrainian rappers. You want to know what's going on in Mexico? You want to know what's going on in Iraq? Find the Iraq rappers. Oh, they telling you what's going on.
Chuck D used to say
There's
that.
a Ukrainian rap group, Faux Show.
Oh,
We've
yeah?
had some Forbes
Wow.
events. And it's super powerful.
Chuck D used to say hip hop is the CNN of the streets. You know, Chuck D from Public Enemy. And to add on to what Joe is saying too, look at COVID. When COVID hit, a lot of people were just alone. And now that has been under control to a large degree. Here we are gathering again. So we celebrate life. We celebrate each other. It makes you have a greater appreciation for each other and a greater appreciation for life. So that's what hip hop is here for, to heal. So I use it for the purpose of healing and to, you know, because I come from that generation that it has always been pure. Like I do hip hop in a form that's not practiced that much anymore. It's pure. It's uncut. So the other part that I think hip hop is good for, and what I think we're here to really let you understand, is that I have a foundation that I did with a doctor called Dr. Williams out of Columbia Hospital in New York City, and it's called Hip Hop Public Health. So we use hip hop to educate children. And did I jump ahead or something?
No. I'm just mindful of time.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah,
Yep.
it's quick, but to teach people about childhood obesity, do you see how the kids now don't go out and play? They sit there and they're on their computers, they're not engaging anymore. We used to go out and play. We would be out there chasing girls, having a good time, you know, having fun, but now...
Playing wiffle ball, listening to Dougie Fresh.
Hey, you see what I'm saying? So now you're talking about high blood pressure, diabetes, anxiety, depression. So we wanted to create something that we could use hip hop in a positive way to have impact in everybody's life. So that's where we got to go with hip hop.
I couldn't agree. So that we've talked about the impact, we've talked about the origins. Getting back to last, because we've got, a lot of the rest of the program, we're going to focus on generational wealth. Yeah. We're going to focus how you take the culture and create wealth. And I want to, Dougie, you have one of the most sampled songs of all time. I think it's a top 5 all-time sampled song. Do you make any from? Do you make money from when people are using this, this asset that you created?
Yeah, I make money, but you have to have the right thing.
Lottie-dottie for
Lottie-dottie.
those who don't know.
You know that song?
When you hear it, you'll know it. Trust me.
Lottie-dottie, we like to party. We don't cause trouble. We don't. Well, I'll do that later.
Just
I'll
the
do
man
that later.
that's on the mic.
Yeah.
And when
Hold on, man. We're going to get into that later now. Come on. Yeah,
So we just did that. Do you make any money from that?
Yeah. I make money from it, and actually, I was one of the first artists to ever own his masters. Actually, I think I was the first. Because in '85, nobody wanted to sign me or Slick Rick because they thought he sound crazy, and they didn't think the beatbox was what it was. So I put up the money myself. And when I put up the money myself, I went around looking for labels. I took it to Profile. He said, this is the worst record I ever heard. He said the show on Lottie Dottie was the worst record he ever heard. I said, no problem. I took it to a little label, and then I did a deal with them. And when I did the deal, they would distribute it. And I own the masters and I own the publishing of all of my songs. So I look at it the same way. So to answer your question, I think that more artists need to own their masters and own their songs. I mean, it's intellectual property. I'm also into real estate, you know, and I say there's only two positions you can play in life. You can either be the tenant or the landlord. And the landlord is the lord of the land. You understand? So I'd rather be the landlord. So it's the same with the intellectual property. So I think that that's one of the things. When you own this intellectual real estate, I never thought that this record that we made would still be relevant today in the way that it is. I make more money off the song now than I did when it first came out.
That's amazing. Well, that's how you build generational wealth. I think with that, we'll transition to the next panel. But I will say, if people want to hear more from these guys, we got 2 hours tonight where, you know, we're going to hear the music, we're going to feel the music, and now, you know, we've all kind of seen where it came from, both in terms of the history, but also in terms of where it's going. And that, you know, what you guys have done, you guys have built the foundation that entire business and entire culture is now built upon. So thank you for all you did as pioneers. Here at Davos, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And definitely one last thing I'd like to say, I'd like to thank Cool and Dre for having us here.
Thank you, Cool and Dre.
And I want to thank my brother Fat Joe, because we go back so far, and to see what he has accomplished in his career is unbelievable. He has transformed so much in hip hop, just even on the level of Latino hip hop artists. Because there was a guy named Ruby D from Fantastic Romantic 5, and then it went to Tito from the Fearless 4, and Fat Joe has taken this thing to a level that's unexplainable. So I want to say that in front of my brother.
All right. All right, Earn Your Leisure, come on up. Great start, Earn Your Leisure. Wait till you see the next panel. We're going to take it to another level here. And well, let's take this moment. Move on in, folks. Move on in. Move on in. All right. Yeah, anywhere you want. Yeah. Rod on this one, right? Yeah. You met Lori yet?
We just met.
Yeah. How are you, Troy? Roger.
I got. We can get you. We'll get you one. Yep. Get two more. Yep.
That's great.
You're aging backwards. Are you
Megan.
with that skin?
Megan.
Yes.
Right?
Here you go.
We're good. I think we're good. Look. Shy, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's get it going.
Let's do it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So now we're going to follow up that amazing panel with some dynamite people that we have the honor of speaking to. So first I want to try to give these people a rundown if you're not familiar with everybody. So Roger Mason Jr., former NBA player, former NBA Player Association president, and now is a superstar in the entrepreneur space. Our good friend, Andre Dre Lion.
You heard the Pat.
Lion.
Wait. You heard the patois?
You did.
Lion.
You know that?
You done know.
You done know.
Big up team.
One of the greatest hip-hop producers of all time, but is transitioning into entrepreneur space, into the tech space. he's going to talk about it, but he's actually working on a platform that's going to revolutionize music. So give it up for Dre from Cool and Dre.
This is
And Megan Holster Alexander, superstar in venture capital. She is the head of the A16Z Cultural Leadership Fund, which we have the honor of being LPs in, and just a very bright mind and a very great person. So thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate it. So Dre, let's start this out. So we just got finished listening to two of the greatest to ever do it, hip hop pioneers, and they've built the foundation of hip hop 50 years, and it's become $1 trillion industry, right? But I'm not even gonna waste any time. You know, we've had the honor of speaking with a few gentlemen, your friends, our friends, Timbaland, Irv Gotti, and they both sold their catalogs, and that's something that's very popular. And we're in this financial space, and a lot of hedge funds, a lot of equity firms are buying music catalogs. Crypto's down, stock is down. You can't really get returns anywhere, so they go into artists. Lil Wayne sold his catalog, a bunch of artists selling their catalogs. You are not a fan of selling catalogs. Why not?
No. First of all, I want to thank Fat Joe and Dougie Fresh for coming out. You know what I'm saying? This is unbelievable. Last year was my last year here in Davos. I met Lori with Lobis. We had a conversation about artists retaining, their work, retaining their creation, and we just kicked it off. And I let her know, I was like, Davos needs some culture, man. You know what I'm saying? So we started working on things together, and we felt like, the 50 years of hip hop was a perfect time to bring culture to Davos. So I'm very, very proud to see a room full of people with these amazing icons. So please give it up again for Fat Joe and Dougie Fresh. So, I'm not mad at the artists that's selling their publishing right now, because that's the only option, right? But artists should not be in a position to divorce themselves from their cultural asset. It's not fair. We should be able to leverage it. If you buy a house, they always say a house is one of the greatest investments you can make. And if you live in a house and you want to do some upgrades, there's an opportunity for you to pull some money out that house, fix the house, and then the value of your house increases, right? It's a great investment. Well, we're creating a product that's changing the world every day, whether it's through music, whether it's through product, whether it's through fashion. And we believe that you should have the opportunity to, leverage that. So what Lobis and I have done is create a fund where artists can now put that asset in a fund for a smaller multiple, but share in everything that's in that fund. So if there's catalogs, if there's art, if there's a Basquiat, if there's Broadway plays, the kids on Broadway, they're not getting their just due, right? Dougie Fresh talked about the arts program being cut in schools. That's the first thing they cut. So we just want to create an opportunity for artists to create generational wealth. That's what we're here for. You know what I'm saying? I'm a little overcome by the moment right now, but you know what I'm saying? Nah, it's just, you know what I'm saying? We work so hard.
How do I invest in this?
You know what I'm saying?
we're getting there. Joe, we're getting there. Joe, we're getting there.
You know what I mean?
I want to invest.
So that's it.
Where do I invest?
So what we're doing is creating a fund that artists could put their intellectual property in it, share in everything that's in the fund, and create generational wealth. And that's what we're here to do. And we're here to take over Davos and change the complexion of this place.
Love it. So let's stay right there. So Megan, I want to come to you because we talked about diversity, and Dre, you just said we want to change the complexion of Davos, and I'm looking around the room, and this is where it starts. But Megan, I want to talk about why it's so important that we do it here in Davos, and kind of the role that CLF is playing in making sure that this conversation doesn't only start, but we actually see action that goes behind it.
Yep. Absolutely. So I think there are a lot of conversations across the world about what generational wealth looks like, but it's not often that you see people actually putting action behind it. So CLF actually started, one of the founders of our firm, Ben Horowitz, is a huge hip hop fan. And one of the things he started to notice was exactly what you talked about, Dougie Fresh, is that the people who moved the culture forward, not even moved it forward, created it and then moved it forward, were not getting to take part in all of the economic creation that it had. So Ben said, what resources do I have to bring to bear? What can I use that I have access to and I have control of that can help the people who are creating culture and pushing it forward now share in that economic wealth? And that is two things. It's capital and technology. Andreessen Horowitz is a firm that is an early stage tech investor, and technology has been the largest creator of wealth in the last 20 years. That's because we invest really early for pennies on the dollar, and then by the time it makes it public, it's selling for $40 or $50. So those multiples are really, really great. So how do we bring in our legends, our current cultural creators like Earn Your Leisure, and allow them to invest so they can create economic wealth for themselves? So we really try to focus on that, and so far it's been really, really successful. The other thing that we really try to do is bring more young African Americans into tech in general. There's a number of avenues that you can come in. It's not just one way. There's room for everybody, and we just want that to be known. So I'm evangelizing it from the mountaintops, literally, that technology has played a huge part in getting culture to the masses, things going viral, social media, Black Twitter, Black TikTok, all the dances, all the clothes people want to wear, all the music that they listen to. And so that marriage has been really important, and the cultural side should be benefiting.
Yes. Roger Mason Jr. I want to talk about your entrepreneurship, but before, if we could talk about the NBA for a minute. So you spent a lot of time, your whole life, playing basketball in NBA and then in NBA leadership position. So the money that's being generated with professional sports is crazy. We were talking to Kyrie Irving a while ago, and he was saying that you're going to start seeing $200 million contracts soon. And when you're talking about $200 million, like, that's a different level of wealth. So
Can I play basketball?
Actually, 300 million.
300.
Yeah, and before you know, it'll be 4. First of all, thanks Forbes, Randall, for having me today to be with these great women and men, and Joe, obviously, and Doug. Great job. As far as the NBA, it's been incredible to see the growth. When I first came in the league, it was a very different dynamic. We owned 57%. The owners owned 43%. I was a part of the negotiating where we made it 50-50. And the players lost a lot of money in that, right? So how do we keep our value, like Joe and Doug was talking about, but make it a win-win for both? And so as the TV deals have gone up, as the money's gone up, the contracts have gone to the moon. I mean, I think after this next CBA, there's a new media deal. They're saying contracts can go north of $300 million. Players may make $1 billion playing basketball in the next 10 years, which is staggering, right? So when you talk about generational wealth, you talk about, what players do with that money. That's what my passion was at the Players Association, helping guys with their transition, getting smart people in the room. We actually did a tech symposium with Jeff Jordan and Ben Horowitz from A16, right? Because players had all this capital. Now, what do we do with it, right? We know the horror stories. We grew up seeing it.
Invested with the cultural leadership fund.
Yeah, no, but it's about being in the right rooms with the right people. And so one thing I do want to say to Dougie's point, right? When we had that new TV deal, we were making around $900 million in TV rights. We jumped to $2.7 billion, right? And so all this money came in, but it was on the backs of the Oscar Robinsons and all the guys that came before us that they had bad knees, they had, ailments, and they couldn't do anything. So we came, Michelle Roberts, who was the executive director at the time, we came with an idea. We said, look, what better way to say thank you to the players that came before us than to do healthcare for all players? So she told me to write a white paper on it. I had this idea, and I'm like, well, at the time, I didn't know what a white paper was. But I told her I got it, I'm gonna do it. And so we did the white paper. We got it ratified. The NBA wanted to join. And so now, if you played 3 years or more, you got health care for life, right? If you played 10 years or more, you and all your dependents are covered for life, right? And that gets paid for by the players. And that, to your point, Doug, that was a thank you for helping get the game to where it is. So to your original question, the generational wealth, I mean, the opportunity is there with these new contracts. Now with technology, now with players being smarter, with funds like the Cultural Fund and others, like your fund. Like, I want to hear about your fund because the players need to be investing in that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the things that we're doing with the fund right now is to make sure we take care of the younger artists. That way they don't get scammed. But we also want to set up the fund that way our legends, like, what Dougie Fresh was talking about, can participate. You know what I'm saying? There's no health care for rappers at all, for artists, period. You know what I'm saying? At all. And, you know, we generate too much money for the world to not be able to take care of our guys.
We should talk about that.
Yeah,
then.
absolutely. Megan, I want to talk to you for a sec, because when we talk about generational wealth, when we think about what has generated the most money over the past 30 years, it's been technology. And so can you speak to the importance of us not only understanding and applying, but actually creating, right? Because I remember, you know, being in education, it was like coding was a thing, coding wasn't a thing, and now AI seems to be the thing, Web3 needs to be the thing, but where are we learning it, right? Can you talk about the importance of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, technology, we use it all day, every day. In our phones and these microphones and these lights and all of the apps that we're using. So all of the ways that we can contribute are incredibly important, whether it's as a developer, right? You're actually creating it, whether it's as like a head of product at a company, whether you're the entrepreneur and it was your idea, whether you're the investor. And so our goal, particularly at CLF, is like, how do we put Black people first in all of it, right? We want more Black entrepreneurs, which we support through our TXO fund. We want more Black equity, which we do through CLF. We want more Black developers, which we support through our nonprofit program. We fund kind of millions of dollars towards teaching folks how to code, teaching people about design, et cetera. So we want to put us in line first for everything, and it's in due time. So it's just mission critical, because I have seen, we've all heard about it, X-company IPOs, the founder gets super rich, so we want more entrepreneurs. First employees get super rich, so we want more early employees, employ 5, 10, 15, 20, because that is generational wealth. It's an amount of money that a lot of people haven't seen, that now that they can go put it back into the market, right? Now you can self-fund your startup. Now you can angel invest, and that's kind of how we keep it going. So we think if we put Black people in particular first in line into all of those tracks, that we're setting ourselves up for success.
So Dre, let me ask you this: hip hop, right? $1 billion industry. We just talking about athletes making upwards of $500 million for a contract. But when you look at hip hop, it's dominated by Black people, but we don't have any ownership. So at what point do we get to the point where we can actually own a record label? Not a boutique record label, no disrespect, but major distribution. Because it's like we're in Davos, and this is an economic forum. So it's like at some point we have to control our economic power, and that's hip hop music. So in your opinion, how do we get past being artists and really have real equity and real ownership in the situation?
I mean, I think this is the first step. You know, this is the first hip hop celebration in Davos ever, right? And it's about putting the creators in front of the investors. Mm-hmm. You know, they make us talk to the A&R first. Then we get to talk to the executive vice president at A&R. Then we get to talk to the vice president. Then we get to talk to the president. And maybe we get to the CEO. But all these people are depending on an investor to invest in the actual record company. And they use us to own market share. So Davos is a place where all of the investors are at. And the creators need to have a direct line to the investor. And that's how we, you know what I'm saying? That's how we change it.
Yeah.
And I'll just add that, like, that goes across industries. That's in music, that's in tech, having a direct connection to the investor, having a direct connection to the startup, because the middleman stuff gets real messy.
Yeah. Nah, we don't want the
real
middleman.
messy.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, we don't want the middleman. I met 3 guys last year that all own banks, and they told me, do not sell your catalog. There's a Web3 technology, and it's gonna explode. Call me, and we could leverage your catalog. And I was like, I can't be the only one having this conversation. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're doing here, you know?
Yeah, shout out to you, Dre, because number one, and we had this conversation last night, it's one thing to get information, but it's also a thing to share the information.
We gotta share it.
We
you know
have
what I'm
to
saying?
share it, right?
We gotta share it. And you know what? I'm gonna keep it real with you. My brother Fat Joe, he discovered Cool and Dre, right? No, hold on.
Okay, generational wealth. So if we did an ancestry.com, chances are my family was poor for 400 years before I came along. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about changing the dynamic for the future families to come. and our future relatives and our community in the future. Generational wealth is a very important word, and that's what we trying to do. We trying to get our just due. I'm sorry.
No, that's
about that.
100%.
Shout out to Joe.
And what Joe's talking about is the conversation has been happening for like the last 2-3 years, and tech has a lot to do with that. You know, that phone, that iPhone is creating millionaires with kids that are 12, 13, 14. Kids right now are on Twitch making $1 million a month playing video games. When I was a kid, I got in trouble for playing too much video games.
Yeah.
Right? So tech is so huge, and generational wealth is great, and the discussion is great, and the idea is great. It's time to put it in action. You know, I learned through my partners here, Lori and Sarah, they taught me the game. They said, this is how you create generational wealth. This is how it's been done for hundreds of years. Let's give the creators an opportunity to participate.
And the thing about generational wealth that we say the phrase all the time, but what generational wealth means is like being in a position to do for others. Generational means I want to have it and I want to give it to the next person and the next person, or I want to give it to my community. Yep. And if you have that communal mindset,
exactly,
it's very difficult not to be successful because we can go so far together.
We could put it in practice. Me and Cool, we met Fat Joe 20 years ago, and we were doing good. We were selling beats locally to all the drug dealers, and they was giving us $700 a beat, $1,000 a beat. We met Fat Joe, and he took us to New York and said, how much you charging for beats? And we was like, man, $1,000. Nah, fuck that. You're getting $15,000. And it changed our lives because he gave us an opportunity. We need to do what he was doing for us on a mass scale, and tech allows us to do that. So this fund that we're creating, we're gonna tokenize it so we can have a real world asset of value on it. And it's gonna be great, you know what I'm saying? I'm super excited.
Yeah, shout out to y'all. That iPhone helped two young men create a company.
That's right.
That would change the world. It would one day have them talking about generational wealth in Davos. So shout out to the iPhone. Yeah, we talked about generational wealth, and I want to close with this, Roger, because I'm gonna come to you. But one of the things we don't talk about is sustainable wealth, right? Because it's one thing to get it, but how do we keep it? Right. And so when you're talking about NBA players accumulating $500 million deals, billion-dollar deals, how do we get them to be more receptive to this part of the world, to the investment community? Because I know that was one of the initiatives that you did when you created your fund.
100%. I think, and giving another shout out to hip hop, I think if you look at Jay-Z and how he changed the paradigm with looking at equity, I think the sports world really took a cue from that, right? You look at LeBron and his deal with Beats by Dre, right? He wasn't worried about the short term. So as you say, longevity, he wasn't worried. He was worried about, okay, I get some equity in this, what does the exit look like? And I think that was a defining moment for a lot of superstars in the NBA because they started looking at their own deals very differently. How do I get equity? And so over the last 6 years, it's been really great to see that. How does this generation change what happened in the past? I think technology, I think information, I think access to the direct investors so they can co-invest, so they know the deals, right? Because a lot of times, 10 years ago, by the time an athlete got a deal, you knew that was a deal that everybody else said no to. So why is an athlete going and investing in a restaurant or going and putting money into an asset that's depreciating, right? So I think technology has changed that. I think players are getting smarter. I think living in the Bay, Golden State Warriors, Iguodala, Steph Curry, those guys being around the circle in tech, I think it's changed the paradigm of an NBA player, and I think you're going to see more and more guys. John Morant said he has a goal to make $1 billion by 30.
No, that's crazy.
Like the goals are different now, right? It's not about how much you can spend on some jewelry. It's about how much equity can you get in this new deal.
No, that's a fact.
And I'll just say really quick, I love that you said that because I think the paradigm is shifting, but it's still not that common. Like so many people are not investing at all in anything, right? And so I think there's a lot, half of my job, Judine knows is, if not more than half, is educating people and entertainers and musicians and athletes saying like, there's more to this story. Like for the most part, now these $300 million deals, but for the most part, like we talked about this last night, you can't get to $1 billion off of one thing.
Nope.
It's not gonna come from the music industry usually. It's usually not only gonna come from sports. We have to kind of put together a portfolio of things. And so I spend so much of my time doing that. And I think if we can kind of just continue to tell that story of like, okay, how do we add something else and get through the distraction, quite frankly, of someone trying to pay you for something, and instead you say, I want that equity. No, I don't want a $500,000 check. I want 2%, right? That's a mindset shift. That's a mindset shift. So we're getting there. It's still a lot of work to do, though.
And then one last thing I want to add about hip hop and tech. You know, when they created the turntable, it was just for you to play records. But when we take something and we touch it, we make it different. We transform it. So with hip hop, they started scratching. We started sampling when we made beats. You look at the Clubhouse app, right? It was around for however long it was, right? The pandemic came and we had no way to communicate. So the culture, we jumped on Clubhouse and we created strip clubs in the Clubhouse app.
We did.
I spent $5,000 one night in the strip club. I don't even go to strip clubs, but I was in the strip club on Clubhouse. We have a way to take tech.
Make it rain.
Or versus, exactly. We have a way to take whatever tech creates and transform it. But we always do that as the consumer.
We need to own it.
Let's be in the meetings when we create the tech, right? All right, y'all, we taking up the time. You did.
Roger, before we finish, can you talk about Vaunt? Oh, it's over? Oh.
Yeah,
No, one more.
I spent 1 minute on Vaunt. So when I left the Players Association, we saw how much opportunity there were for athletes and entertainers outside of their normal gig, playing basketball during the season, music. So we started Vaunt to help creators give a platform to monetize their likeness, right? So Post Malone, for example, right? He's a guy that loves to play beer pong. So we created a game for him, a celebrity beer pong tournament, and we got 8 figures for that, right? And so that's something he would do for free that we turn into a business. NBA players in the summer, we have runs that fans never get to see, right? So what would happen if you made a platform that fans could actually see some of these battles, these one-on-one battles? So Vaunt has been built to create content, but IP that we own. And so moving forward, we're really excited about what we're building.
It's amazing.
Incredible.
Thank you to Forbes. Thank you to Dre.
Please, just wait with them real quick. We just talked about, we'll do that in the show. We'll get out of here 3:40. We'll get you full 20 minutes. So. Real quick, we got one more panel coming up. We're going to get out on time because there's another session coming in. So hang out for 20 more minutes. But we got, real quick, Mitch Sheldrick come up.
Okay.
This is going to be the mini TED Talk. This is a 4-minute version. But this whole day, this whole program is about taking, it's about creator equity, and it's about how you take the culture and create wealth. And what Mick's going to talk about, I'm on the board of Global Citizen. Nick is the policy director of Global Citizen. How do you take culture and create change? And what Mick's done with the team is brought Jay-Z to South Africa, brought Jay-Z to India, and created billions of dollars of actions and impact. So Mick, real quick.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Really quick, because that last panel was a big act to follow, so I'm going to make this really short and sweet. At Global Citizen, we're a movement of millions of advocates around the world, and we're fortunate to partner with some of the most incredible artists. Beyonce, Jay-Z, SZA, Thames. Last year we did an incredible show to mark the 65th anniversary of Ghana. And one of the issues that always comes up, that when we talk to many of these artists, they all say, when we talk about equity, how do we make sure that the next generation of artists, the next generation of entrepreneurs, how do we make sure that they have what's needed to even be in the room, to even be considered? Whether it's the girl in the townships in Johannesburg, whether it's the female entrepreneur in Somalia. And one brief story about how we advocate and how we activate, to Randall's point. When Beyonce and Jay-Z came to South Africa, they said, we want to find the local grassroots, meet with the girls in those townships, find out what issues, what barriers they're facing so that they can get a good education, so that they can grow, so that they can run their own business. And when we met with these communities, when we met with these girls, the issues that came through, the passion, was really around issues that seemed really basic, but are so important. It was around period poverty. It was around the fact girls were dropping out of school when they didn't have access to sanitary pads and napkins. And so we took this issue, so true. And when Beyonce and we announced Mandela 100, you know, the 3 top trending hashtags on Twitter was Mandela 100, Beyonce, and It's Bloody Time. And that was this organic movement, and it was around removing the tax on sanitary pads and napkins. It was around making it free. And when we took this to the government, they said, this isn't really worthy of a show with Beyonce and Jay-Z. It's not, it seems such a taboo issue. And we said, no, this is what your citizens want. And it was the #1 issue. People were taking 1,200 actions an hour. We had a petition so thick that when we put it on the president's desk, it almost broke the legs of the desk. And sure enough, when we went all the way through, when Dave Chappelle was introducing Beyonce and Jay-Z, Oprah was giving President Ramaphosa a big welcome. He had nothing in his speech, and they confronted him, and they said, how are you going to respond? And he came up on that stage, and he said, I will pledge, right at the last minute, he wrote it in, I will pledge to remove that tax and make it free in schools. And of course, it was great. Of course, it's the follow through that counts. And all of those incredible activists on the ground, they've continued to campaign the last 4 years, because when the show's over, we clap ourselves on the back, people say, well, has those girls in those townships, have they actually seen the results? And in that case it was, but that was an incredible example, and it was the leadership of these artists, Thames, SZA, and others. I saw it last year in Accra. That's what it's about, and so that's when we talk about equity. How can we make sure at the grassroots? Global Citizen, we're here for it. We're here to partner. I just want to give a big shout out to Randall for inviting me to be a part. Amazing board member. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
All right, we got 20 minutes left, and we got a killer last panel. Lori's going to take us home.
Let's go. Ladies. Hi, everybody. I'm Lori Hotz, and I'm co-founder and co-CEO of Lobis, and so privileged to be here with all this amazing talent. And I used to work at Christie's. I was a managing director. That's where I met my co-founder, Sarah. And we used to run a couple $1 billion a year of art, everything from Basquiat to Rembrandt, Monet. And, you know, we'd do $100 million sales, and world records would be reached. And we'd look at each other and we're like, where's the artist? Like, what is going on? Where's their leverage in this economic system? And I also worked in banking for 25 years, so like I always follow the money. And I'm like, what is happening here? And so, you know, we decided to start a company called Lobis, and our focus is creator equity, and our focus is being able to invest in cultural assets. Because let's face it, creators give us everything. They give us meaning, right? They tell us about beauty, about struggle, about inspiration. Like, what would our lives really be without it? And so it was very fortuitous. I was sitting in the Handshake Lounge in May, unbelievably, run off my feet, and this strapping man comes to sit beside me. He's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm into creator equity. He's like, yeah, me too. Like, well, tell me more. And so we've literally been tag teaming this for the last couple months with tons of support and tons of help from Megan. And I want to introduce these women because these are the people that are going to make it all happen. These are the people who are the powerhouses in the industry. And we have the COO of Circle, who's Elizabeth Carpenter, and we have the CEO of 8hut, Jamie Leverton. And you know, you can read their bios, but what it doesn't tell you is their spirit of inclusion and generosity is overwhelming. And so that's why they're here today, and they're going to be part of the engine, as I'm sure, to leverage tokenization, leverage new technology to ensure inclusion. And so let's start talking about it.
All right.
Jamie, what are you excited about? Tell us.
I think we need to go back a bit to the origin story. Hut 8 is a Bitcoin mining company. We're the first publicly traded company to hold Bitcoin on balance sheet. And for those of you not familiar with the Bitcoin origin story, it was really a reaction in 2008 to the financial crisis. And this small group of technologists that were libertarians said this is just ridiculous, that the banking system can collapse by their own poor actions, poor decisions, and it's the consumer that's left holding the bag. The money supply is controlled by central authorities. We have 1.1 billion people in the world that have no access to a formal banking system, that have no access to identity. And so from that, they released the Bitcoin white paper, which was to create Bitcoin, a digital gold, or I look at it as digitized energy, and we're going to talk about the tokenization of real world assets. It is a money supply that is completely decentralized. It's run by code. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin in supply. The last Bitcoin comes into circulation in the year 2140. It cannot be manipulated. It cannot be debased or inflated. And it's the promise of what Bitcoin can bring to the global citizen that got me sitting here, and I'm sure got Megan sitting here as well.
So tell us, how does trust play into this new economic model? And how should people think about trusting this new system? Although it seems like it can facilitate the leverage or give people the leverage that they really need in a system.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to thank you for having me here. I'm so humbled to be on this panel, particularly given the two panels that just preceded us.
Yeah, I'm fully sweating and shaking at the same time. So it feels really good to be in my body right now.
Nuts. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Trust comes in lots of forms, and trust is critical. I mean, if you think about, I have what is this? This is like a 10 franc note. This actually is just a piece of freaking paper. If you don't believe what it's worth, and you can't trust in what it's worth, that when you go to a store and use it, that it's actually going to give you something of equal value back, it's game over. This piece of paper might as well be burnt. All the stuff that we're talking about, all the mumbo jumbo, all the crap, all the words, all the English words in a sentence that when you put them all together, you don't even know what the fart anyone's talking about, because it's all this crypto gobbledygook. You've got to, number one, education. If people do not understand why this matters and why they should care, then it's game over for the cryptocurrency industry, for digitization, for tokenization. So that's number one.
Sorry, can I just lob a shout out? I always recommend people that are going down the rabbit hole for the first time in this world start with a book called The Bitcoin Standard. Mm-hmm. It does an incredible job of just laying out the history of money, what Bitcoin's solving for, why it's different from anything else, and then how blockchain technologies have been built on top of it. So anyway, highly recommend. Education is the best place to start, and that book is the foundation.
So that's like the foundation is you build trust that way, just because people understand what you're doing and why it matters, and really importantly, they can believe in it. Because again, if you don't believe that you are going to get any value out of something, then it's game over. Another form of trust is that you build a system, which is what blockchain and the promise of cryptocurrency gives you, that can be trusted because it removes the very middlemen who will otherwise potentially take any wealth that you can generate and create and hold. They'll take it away from you. So
they'll debase it.
Whether this is something like, music rights, whether it's something like you go buy a house and you now have a deed. Well, what if the guy in the deeds office just doesn't like you? So they don't write down that you actually own that house. This stuff happens. It may not happen in fancy pants suburban America, but it absolutely happens. If you have a form of, if you can decentralize some of this, if you can automate a lot of this, if you can make it irrefutable, then you don't have to worry about the fact that that house is yours. This is very similar to what you guys were discussing and what you're doing, which is amazing, which is all about ownership. If you can't trust that, right now you can't trust that if you have a music, you create a bunch of music or you create a painting or whatever, you can't trust that you're gonna have any wealth generation out of that at all other than the first sale. So if you're going to change up the technology and you're going to digitize that, you're going to tokenize it so that there's a digital representation of your ownership that travels with the piece of property, whatever it is, you have to trust that you're going to get that. That is another form of trust. And when it actually starts happening, people start seeing it, there's going to be this groundswell. And the other thing is just trusting that for all of us in this industry, because there is so much confusion, there's the education piece, but there's following up with what you say you're going to do, you actually do. So in our case, we have a digital dollar. We operate the world's largest digital currency, dollar, there's about 44 billion in circulation. Last year, there was, I think, 8.6 billion trillion, transacted on-chain. That's a gobbledygook word for like actually happening in the cryptocurrency world on blockchains. This is real, it's happening. And there's a flight to safety to take something like a USDC. By the way, what I meant to say was that USDC has powered 8.6 trillion last year. That they can take USDC and they know it's a digital form of a dollar and they know that it's worth $1 because they can see every month we're showing that dollar is sitting in an actual bank account. And then they know that they can trust it. They can hold it in a digital wallet. That's not a wallet with paper money. It's just a digital wallet. It's either on their phone or frankly in their head. And if they had to, they could walk across the border of the corrupt country they're in into a better country and take their wealth with them. There's like countless examples of this. We're doing it with the UNHCR, United Nations High Commission on Refugees, to get money into the hands of Ukrainian refugees. This is through the power of a blockchain called Stellar and USDC. Money is going into the hands of Africans, the African citizens in the African continent, to be able to build wealth with a platform there called Aza Finance. There are countless examples. USDC has been used to fund COVID relief in India. We used it to fund Venezuelan frontline workers with COVID in 2020 in partnership with the government and with seized funds from the corrupt government that's there. These are really powerful utility examples, but it works because people trust it.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think the efficiency of it is incredible. The tooling, like the tooling and what it can create, and the transparency it creates. And I think that was one thing also. I was like, wow, these music, they make all this music. They go to these hedge fund managers. They're like given a multiple, and I'm like, what's behind the multiple? How are they calculating that multiple? I don't know. Why is it increasing now? I don't know. Like, that's just unacceptable. Like that's just like, these are the people that are creating the value and should not be disintermediated from that value. And that's why this economic model works so well, because it is transparent and it's irrefutable. So you can't just decide that somebody doesn't like you at the office and give the lien to somebody else.
Skin color, gender, preference, whatever the hell, yeah.
Right. So I think that's powerful. I'm Jamie. I'm going to ask you the bad question. What can go wrong? Like, what should we be worried about? What are we up at night thinking about?
I think we've seen a lot of headlines about what can go wrong in this industry. But what's gone wrong in 2022, we've seen all the big nasty headlines about Luna and FTX. Those have nothing to do with the technology. They have nothing to do with blockchain. They have nothing to do with Bitcoin. These are bad actors. These are centralized exchanges. These are unregulated offshore that could have happened in any industry. But because there's so much fear, uncertainty, and doubt, not enough education or understanding about the industry, those headlines can have a serious impact on our industry, and that's what we've seen. So I think, I know that a lot of the work that we do is about education. It's about, I actually got interviewed yesterday. Oh no, it was this morning and I was outside, it was very cold. And they said they were excited to interview me because I was the only Bitcoiner they could find that would go on camera. So I took that as a compliment. Yeah. But that's because, just like this is the first celebration of hip hop at Davos, Bitcoiners aren't in the main stage at the World Economic Forum either. Bitcoin has turned into a controversial word again, and we need to educate, and we need to fix that, and we need to teach about the promise of this technology, which is still in its infancy. For those of you that think you're too late and you missed the boat, I assure you, you are not too late. We think we're between 10 and 15 years away from this infrastructure actually being fully built out in mainstream. So congratulations for being early and being here.
Yeah, well, welcome. You're welcome here anytime. So we see KKR, brilliant people. They just launched $1 billion catalog fund. Institutional investors are running to invest in that fund. Other large organizations are also doing the same. These are cultural assets, very valuable because they have yield, they have a revenue that comes, and they understand that, and it's repeatable. So these are highly valued assets, especially during times that are uncertain. What we're trying to do with this technology is to ensure that people have access to invest in these assets. Like, you can go to Coachella, come out, invest in your favorite song and your favorite artist, and also that the artists participate in the carry. So they are part of the investment group, and they are part of the decision makers, which honestly increases the value of the asset because they're tied to it, and also they can bring their friends, which is amazing. That's where I want to see. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just we have a debate about there's code of law, and then in our world, it's code is law. And some of the promise is not only can you embed equity back to the creator, you can embed equity to every generation that follows through the code. So every time that piece of art transacts, a cut of it can go back to the family, back to the estate, to the non-for-profit that you want to support. All of that is possible, and it can become trustless. If it's embedded in the code, you don't need an intermediary.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know that this is a very hot area here, this place. So
you and me,
physically, and so this is my last question. And Elizabeth, first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
These women, Megan, Sarah, these are the people who are going to actually execute on this vision and are so important to this ecosystem. Well, that's a given.
Totally.
They're in. Yeah. We know, right? You're in. No. Anyway,
we appreciate you.
We're so excited, but I want Elizabeth to bring us home with we're here next year, willing. And what are we seeing? What are we seeing from a regulatory framework? What are we seeing from an adoption framework, education? How can we execute on that?
Yeah. So a really important thing that we're looking forward to is continuing to build trust through. We as a company do a lot of financial inclusion, education, outreach. And we have so that's number one. Is you gotta keep building that trust, because 2022 did an awful lot to completely erode trust in anything about blockchain and cryptocurrency. One man, two men, three men who are bad actors. It's really a shame, but they really destroyed that trust. The technology, as you said, is great. It's the people who did bad things with it. People were saying the same thing about the internet. In the late 90s, they were like, oh, this is bad, this is bad. It wasn't bad. The technology was fantastic. You just had a bunch of bad actors. So we've cleaned up a lot of that garbage in 2022. So 2023 is the year of utility. It's the year of trust. And where regulation comes in is that we spend a lot of time investing in helping regulators regulate us. We want to be regulated. A lot of people think regulation is bad. It slows things down. Regulation is actually good. Why? Because when you have regulators regulating you, it's an objective third party that's assessing the business that you do and helping protect the end user. The end user might be a consumer, it might be a business, but regulation is really important. And we've been around for 10 years, USDC has been around for 5 years. They know this isn't going away. I just quoted a really big number, $8.6 trillion powered by USDC last year. That's nuts. I have every other number under the sun I could quote you. This is real, it's happening now. They know it, we know it, and particularly given what happened in 2022, they know now that they've got to actually start moving on this, which is fantastic because we've been working with them. Regulators are our friends. So regulation has to happen. The other reason it has to happen is because, what is USDC? What is this digital dollar thing? They have to help it define and make it official that USDC, for example, is just it's a dollar. It's very simple. It's not a security, for example. And that's also important in your business because if what you do is viewed as a security, it's regulated in a different way. It requires different steps that have to be gone through. But if the regulators lack clarity, then it slows the whole business down, which is why regulation actually, once those regulatory decisions are made, it's going to be so liberating. That's when you're going to see this groundswell. That's why some major mainstream companies are holding back right now, because they're unclear about, I don't want to trip up the law. Well, the law isn't written yet, because these are, as you were saying, these are the early innings. So if we can exit 2023 with a lot more understanding of what this is all about and what potential it holds for everybody, not just businesses, not just white people, not any particular group of people, everybody understands it. We do that through education. If we can continue to beat the drum on the trusted operators in this space.
Yes.
And if we can help regulators regulate us across the world, we are regulated in Singapore. We were just talking with the French minister yesterday, trying to figure out regulation in Europe. We spend time with regulators in America. If we can do that, and we exit the year with a lot more clarity around that, then all of our businesses will flourish a lot sooner than they will without it.
Absolutely. We'll accelerate. Well, thank you so much. I'm very humbled by these women. I'm also want to thank our partners, A16Z, Megan and team are just an incredible force. Also Forbes, Randall, Visionary, really just making this happen. And of course, our icons in the room. Dougie Fresh, Fat Joe, Cool and Dre, Roger. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tonight.
Thank you all. Hub Culture, handshake. Thanks for the venue. And we have a request. Again, thank you, Lori. Again, Lori, Dre, Megan, a Cultural Leadership Fund, Lobus, amazing, amazing. We got to get out of here in about 5 minutes. So let's clear the room. The conversations continue in the snow. So go on out, clear the room, and keep on talking right outside the door. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
I love y'all. I love y'all. So we are the